The first talk is on comparison between cabergoline and costing in prevention of OHSS. It's by Dr. Rutvij Dalal, and he is the recipient of Brightest Young Indian Scientist Award by Mylan Pharmaceuticals. The talk was actually scheduled on yesterday. And Dr. Rutvij Dalal is a consultant at the Department of Reproductive Medicine at Dr. Sabains Hospital and Research Center, Kerala. And he is a gold medalist in his post-graduation and FNB Fellowship in Reproductive Medicine under the National Board of Examinations. And he was awarded with CS Don Best Paper Prize in AICOG 2011, 2012, and 2013. And he had several best papers and posters with prizes in various national and international congresses. And he has contributed to many textbooks, and he had invited presentations in National Congress as well. Over to you, Dr. Rutvij.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Kunjumardin. At the outset, I would like to thank immensely Dr. Gautam Malavadia, the Congress President, Mrs. Goril Gandhi, Congress Chairperson, and Mylan Pharmaceuticals for considering me worthy to be a recipient of this award. As mentioned, I was supposed to be here yesterday, but my flight got delayed, and I'm presenting this talk right now today. The study was basically a comparison of coasting with cabergoline administration for prevention of early severe OHSS in ART cycles. As we know, OHSS is one of the major complications of ART treatment. And apart from multiple pregnancy that we worry the most, the other complication that we dread is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. This is actually one of the most leading morbidities of ART treatment. It can lead to mortality too in certain rare instances. Apart from the varied treatments and options that we have to prevent as well as treat and reduce severity of OHSS, two of them which have been considered are cabergoline, which is anti-VEGF, and coasting. My study addresses to compare both of them. So the objective of my study, which was a prospective randomized controlled trial, was to compare coasting versus cabergoline administration in prevention of severe OHSS. Mind you, I am talking of early OHSS, not the late OHSS, which happens after a positive pregnancy result. Again, the study addresses prevention of severe OHSS, not reduce the morbidity or severity. The wording is important. In discussing the materials and methods, a written informed consent was taken from all the patients, and among couples who underwent IVF or ICSI with us because of tubal male ovarian or unexplained factors, 60 women who were considered at risk of developing OHSS were included in the study. The definition of at risk was the presence of pre-ovulatory follicles numbering more than or equal to 20 in both the ovaries and the estradiol level more than or equal to 2,500 picograms per ml. It is noteworthy here that all the women at risk were belonging to the long protocol stimulation. Well, as we all know, the best preventive modality for OHSS is primordial or primary prevention. Ladies and gentlemen, the best preventive strategy is to use antagonist protocol, freeze all embryos with long GnRHA agonist, loop right trigger. Basically, that's the best preventive modality. But we could not take it, we could not use it because only long protocol was used in these 60 women. They were believed to be normoresponders. During the course of stimulation, they were found to be at risk. They were vulnerable to be having ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and we have addressed our study specifically to these women who were undergoing only long protocol. So, in continuing the materials and methods, 60 IVF or ICSI cycles were randomized into two groups. One group was coasting with 30 women, and the other group was cabergoline. In the coasting group, exogenous gonadotropins was withheld to allow estradiol to decrease while the leupride was continued on the same dose. And cabergoline group had patients administered with 0.5 milligrams of cabergoline tablet orally at night on the day of trigger, continued for 8 days thereafter. Both the groups received 10,000 units of urinary HCG, and oocyte retrieval was performed 36 hours later. There were similar luteal phase supports, embryo transfer procedures, and embryo culturing methods in both the groups to avoid any bias. Patients were monitored every 48 hours from the day of trigger until the 8th day for the presence of symptoms as well as signs of OHSS. Hemoglobin and hematocrit were the few tests which were monitored regularly. Clinical pregnancy was defined as the presence of gestational sac or cardiac activity 3 weeks after the embryo transfer. The statistical analysis was done by the statistical package for social sciences 15.0, and it was used to analyze the data of randomized patients. To control for non-normal distribution of data, Mann-Whitney and chi-square tests were used when appropriate for the small number of cases. Fisher's excess test was used for the comparison of frequencies, and a p-value, as usual, less than 0.05 was considered to be statistically significant. These are the results of our study. Costing, n is equal to 30, again cabergoline, n is equal to 30. As we can see, there was not much difference between the age group of patients. Duration of infertility was almost the same. Estradiol on the day of trigger was again not statistically significant. Number of retrieved oocytes, however, has a significantly higher value with the cabergoline group. As you can see, it is almost double, 12.6 as compared to 6.47 with the costing group. Number of good quality oocytes were more with the cabergoline group, but again it was statistically significant. It is 0.02, which is less than 0.05. Number of metaphase 2 oocytes were also statistically significantly higher with cabergoline group, and number of embryos obtained were again higher with cabergoline, but they were not statistically significant. So 3 out of 6 things here, number of retrieved oocytes, good quality oocytes, and metaphase 2 oocytes were all higher with the cabergoline group. The number of embryos transferred were similar in both the groups. Score of the embryos was also almost similar. Percentage of good quality oocytes was a little higher with the costing group, but it was not statistically significant. And percentage of metaphase oocytes was also borderline higher with costing group, but not statistically significant. Clinical outcome of patients at risk of OHSS in two groups. This is perhaps the most important slide in my presentation. Fertilization rate was 21.95 in the costing group and 18.03 in the cabergoline group. It was higher with the costing group, statistically significant value. Implantation rate was higher with the cabergoline group, but it is not significant. Clinical pregnancy rate was also intuitively higher with the cabergoline group, but when we analyzed it, it was found to have a p-value of 0.28, which was not significant. And severe OHSS, the most important parameter of our study, was 4 by 30, 4 patients out of 30 in costing group and 5 patients out of 30 in cabergoline group, which was also not statistically significant. So basically, out of all these values, we only have fertilization rate, which was higher with the costing group. Probably the higher number of good quality oocytes and M2 oocytes were responsible for this result. The mean duration of costing in costing group was 3.20 days. 1 patient in costing and 1 patient in cabergoline group had very bad embryos and led to cycle cancellation before ET. The OHSS results, we followed up and we found that 4 patients in costing group and 5 patients in cabergoline group developed severe OHSS and they required hospitalization. 1 patient from each group required ascitic fluid tapping, and for remaining patients, infusion of 6% starch was enough. The incidence of severe OHSS was again similar in both the costing and cabergoline groups. So in discussing what we have found and in discussing the review of literature that we did to find out what evidence exists in the literature, we found that severe OHSS complicates less than 0.5 to almost 2% of IVF cycles, which causes mortality very rarely, 1 by 45,000 to 50,000 per infertile women receiving gonadotropins. OHSS has been treated empirically over the years because its pathophysiology was unknown till very recently. Vascular endothelial growth factor was discovered to be the most important chemical mediator of HCG-dependent ovarian angiogenesis, and there are so many papers exhibiting the same. Once the syndrome occurs, little can be done to change the course of events. Only supportive measures can be performed. This particularly holds true if the patient is undergoing conventional protocol stimulation. However, the definition and useful method in this stage is cycle cancelling or preventing of HCG administration altogether. But as we all know, cycle cancellation has both financial, emotional, and moral implications. It is highly traumatic to the couple. Freezing all embryos again is another option. It would prevent only late OHSS though, not early OHSS, particularly with HCG trigger. Various other strategies like aspiration of follicles from one of the ovaries, coasting, etc. have been tried. In one study, there was no significant difference observed in terms of pregnancy rates as well as OHSS rates when coasting was compared with follicular aspiration. Cabergoline was found to reduce the severity of OHSS. It was discovered to be highly helpful according to one paper published by Alvarez in 2006. And it has been shown in that study that cabergoline could reverse increased vascular permeability in hyperstimulated animals by inhibition of VEGFR2 phosphorylation. This was amply and elegantly described by Dr. Kilani in his talk today. Wonderful presentation. In animal studies, it has also been shown that low-dose cabergoline blocks some specific VEGFR2 phosphorylation sites. Therefore, changes in VEGFR2 induced by even low-dose cabergoline reverse the occurrence of increased vascular permeability without even altering angiogenesis. So even low-dose cabergoline is effective. The use of cabergoline for prevention of OHSS neither reduces pregnancy nor implantation rate. This is highly important, particularly because there are concerns for reduction of implantation rate. Anything exogenous given during the implantation video has to be proved to be safe before we use it routinely. There are studies that suggest that coasting for more than 3 days may decrease implantation and pregnancy rates. This is in sharp contrast to cabergoline, which has already been proved to be safe. Cabergoline has no teratogenic effects on fetus, and there are so many papers saying the same. To conclude, cabergoline in my paper was as effective as coasting in the prevention of early severe OHSS in high-risk patients, but yielded statistically higher oocytes.